Welcome to lesson 6.2, natural measures in length. This is going to be a different type of measuring. We're going to do our customary measuring, but how do we use tools to determine measurement, including adding and subtracting measure? Here's something I want you to think about. Before we had rulers, yardsticks, any of that, people had to measure things. And how did they do that? You're going to find out in just a minute. So let's get going. Personal measures. So at the top we have a little reference and it says 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. Remember, when you go from small millimeters to a centimeter, we have 10, it takes more millimeters to equal a centimeter because they're smaller, or 100 centimeters to equal a meter, 1,000 millimeters to equal a meter. So 1 inch is equal to about 2.5 or 2.5 centimeters. So that's the equivalent if you're using inches versus centimeters. So it says work with a partner. You will need a ruler and a tape measure. Both tools should have metric units, millimeters and centimeters. And those are U.S. customary and U.S. customary units, which are inches. Find your own personal measures for each body unit shown. First, measure and record using metric units, then measure and record using customary units. So we're going to use both the metric, millimeters and centimeters, and customary. Okay, and we're going to measure the lengths. Now, we're actually going to do this in class, but I want to show you what it looks like. So you're going to be measuring a finger, 1 finger width, and it shows you right here on that what a finger width is. You're going to measure your palm. Now, your thumb is not included in your palm, so it's just from the finger, your first finger to your pinky. Your joint is where your knuckle and is flat, kind of the knuckle to where your finger bends. So that's the next one. And then let's look at the other problems. So we have a finger stretch. Okay. Now, your finger stretch are just your finger. So your pinky to your index finger right here. The great span is pinky to thumb. A cubit is actually your elbow to the top of your fingertips. And a fathom is actually your whole span. That's a natural. The natural yard is to the middle or the center of your body. The fathom is across the entire width from fingertips to fingertips. Now, I want to ask you a couple questions here as we're doing this. So our first question, it says, how close were your personal measures for a natural yard to the standard yard of 3 feet? Be thinking about these because these are questions we're actually going to talk about in class. Okay, so how close? The cubit is usually thought of as 18 inches. Given the class's personal measures for the cubit, is this correct? Is it correct? Is that right? Why do we need standard measures? When are natural measurements or measures useful? So standard versus natural, which is what they did before they had rulers. Okay, and let's finish this one here too. So it says, is this cubit, is this reasonable? And that's something to think about, a cubit, because that's what they measured in before. Would these measures for adults be about the same as measures for 5th graders or 4th graders? Think about that. Okay, so these are all questions we're going to talk about in class, so just be prepared to answer those. Okay, and then finally, what I want to talk about is a game that you're going to be playing. So every day when we come in here, we're going to do what's called finish first, and you're going to need a deck of cards, and it's consisting of 4 of each of the numbers. So you're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and you don't use any other cards. You and your partner. So the object of the game is to be the first one to reach 21. So you're going to decide who will go first, and that person should always play first whenever you start a new game. So even if you play 5 games, the person who's first is always going to be first. So you shuffle the deck and you place them face down. The player going first turns over the top card and announces its value. So if I turn over 5, I say 5. Then the player going second flips over 1, and if I get a 6, now I say 11. Okay, and you continue doing this, announcing the value. Okay, the winner is the first player to correctly announce 21 or any number greater than 21. You start a new game using the cards and that are face down. So A fair game is one in which each player has the same chance of winning. If there is an advantage or disadvantage in playing first, then the game is not fair. With your partner, investigate whether finish first is a fair game. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect data by playing the game. Over the next week, we're going to play finish first at least 50 times. We're going to keep a tally each day. We're going to show how many times the player going first wins and how many times the player going second wins. So in the date, each day we play the game, you're going to write down the date. And player one, we're going to make tallies. If we played 5 games or 10 games and player one or the player going first won 7, I'd have 7 tallies, and then player 2 would have 3. The total of games would have been 10, and we just keep adding on to that. If you're confused on how to play the game, I'll review again in class. So each day you play the game, you record your results on the classroom tally sheet. Each day you play, ask yourself, what is my estimate for the chance of the player going first to win? What's my estimate? Do my estimates change as more games are played? Does finish first seem to be a fair game? So we'll talk about that a little bit more in class too, but it is something we are going to play, and I want to show you how to do that. So hopefully by the time you do see this lesson, maybe you will have learned how to play it already, and this will just be a review for you. So let's go back, take a look. It says natural lengths. How do we use tools to determine measurement? And then it says including adding and subtracting measure. We didn't really add and subtract measure, although when you're rounding to the fourth, there's fourth or half, you're kind of adding and subtracting there too. So we will talk about these journal pages in class, and you'll be working with someone to do the measuring. We'll be using millimeters and centimeters. So please make sure you have a ruler with you when you come to class, because that will be very helpful. Great job of listening and focusing and staying on task. Remember to complete the quiz when you are finished. Have a great evening.